Around the city, the state, the country, and the world we go from this little garage.
Well, not so little.
Well, it's not so little, I suppose, but the other problem is getting anything in and out. That is a bit of it. It's kind of like a traffic jam, but anyway, I wouldn't want to be on the face of this planet if I wasn't slightly eccentric. I don't think I'd be able to cope. Peter Clayton is with me. I'm Jeremy Cordo. The Court of Public Opinion is in session. It's the end of the week. It's February the 3rd. The world's first commercial cheese factory was established. Never thought of cheese coming out of a factory, but I suppose it does. Where was it? Switzerland, 1815. Every time I think of cheese, I think of that ridiculous business with Kuhn cheese. It's still on the market, you know, but we don't buy that. What are they?
Cheer.
They call it
Cheer, and I won't buy it either.
No, well, I won't buy it. Why would you? The guy who founded the company, Kuhn Cheese, his name was Kuhn. Why couldn't he call his cheese Kuhn? But no, they had to change it. So we buy Bega. What do you buy?
Yeah, Bega.
Yeah, Bega. Bega's good. Anyway, let's get on with it. Oh, I mentioned to you yesterday that that was the last concert for Buddy Holly. Yesterday was the last concert. Today was the day that the music died. 1959, the plane crashes and kills musicians Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, J.P. Richardson, the Big Bopper, and the pilot. Who was the pilot? The pilot never gets a name, does he? The pilot never gets mentioned. It was near Clear Lake in Iowa, and there was much controversy about who was going to take the plane and who was going to take the bus, and it was raining, and some people made the right decision and others sort of gave up their place on the plane. And fate is a funny thing, isn't it? But I firmly believe, I don't know about you, but when your number's up, your number's up. Doesn't much matter where you are, it's going to happen. Speaking of it, the number's up. Lord Lucan. Some people say he's still around, you know. That would be a story. If you could find Lord Lucan. Lord Lucan. That's when he disappeared. 2016, the death certificate is granted 42 years after he disappeared, following the murder of the nanny, Sandra Rivet. The Japanese air raid on Java, one of many, of course they were heading in our direction back in 1942 on this day. Ferdinand Magellan, the Portuguese explorer after whom the straits are named, born in Portugal in 1480. Still in World War II, the United States troops captured the Marshall Islands. 1944 was the year, and some of the worst, terrible, most awful battles, like Guadalcanal, that was a terrible one. Iwo Jima and Solomon Islands and all of those, God. Terrible, terrible times. But if we hadn't won the Pacific War, I'm sure I wouldn't be sitting here today talking to you on Facebook. Circus owner P.T. Barnum, he buys the world famous elephant called Jumbo. 1882, John Kennedy bans all trade from Cuba except for food and drugs. In 62, George Nissen. I would have thought George Nissen would have been famous for inventing the Nissen hut, but no, he didn't. He invented the trampoline. Born in Iowa, 1914. The Golden Globe Award actor Johnny Depp, 51, weds model Amber Heard, 28, at their home in Los Angeles, 2015. Now there was a relationship about which you could write a book, make a movie. But then again, we've seen it all before on the news. Ronald Ryan, the last person to be executed in Australia. executed, hanged in fact on this day, Pentridge Prison, 1967. Pete, you're into cricket, aren't you?
Yes.
Bob Simpson, Australian cricket batsman, captain and coach, born in Sydney in 1936. Bob Simpson, I certainly know the name, but not being a great cricket aficionado, was he super famous, Bob Simpson?
Well, he was captain.
Captain, yeah.
Of the Australian team,
Yeah.
and then coach for quite a few years.
Yeah. These days, of course, in those days it was a passion. These days it's a business.
Yes.
The captain of the Australian cricket team is paid $5 million a year to go out and play cricket. Oh boy, oh boy. Speaking of famous Australians, one of the Australia Day Award recipients I was listening to on 3AW, quite amazing. Also, she was one of these, or is one of these climate warriors. She was an archaeologist, or is an archaeologist, responsible for some very interesting discoveries in southern Australia. Around about the year 1990, they uncovered remarkable pieces of rock dating back 125 million years. And she described Australia back then in these glowing terms. She would be a wonderful teacher, because you could just hear in her voice and the way she described, almost as though she was looking at it and telling you what she could see. She was describing what Australia looked like 125 million years ago. And I would think if you were sitting in her class, you'd be totally enthralled. Because being a teacher, there's got to be a bit of theatre involved in being a good teacher. Theatrics. She described Australia back then, and she said it was much further south than it is now. In fact, connected to Antarctica. Completely different climate, completely different everything. Vegetation, animals, everything. Now, how these climate people can have sort of one half of their brain devoted to science and the other half devoted to this climate rubbish. In other words, I'm saying, how could she walk both sides of the street? How is it possible to admit that millions of years ago the climate was completely different? The position of the country was completely different. Yet man's involvement in any of this was non-existent. It just reinforces the fact that man, of course, doesn't help. He's messy and causes a certain amount of trouble, disruption, destruction. But the point about it all, the point about the simple thing, is that whether you like it or not, the climate is going to change, and there's nothing any of us can do about it, because it's been doing that since day one. So you don't disrupt the economy of your country, everything, for nothing. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Oh, man's intervention and man's involvement in climate change is such that we have to close down these factories, these jobs have to go, we have to do this, we have to do that. Just Google, look it up in your Funkin' Wagnall. I prefer Google. Just say, ask the question, is climate change natural? And you'll see it lists all the reasons that climate changes, and always will, always has. The sky is not falling in, ladies and gentlemen. A new and powerful anti-aging drug has been discovered. The drug, it's been around for a while. It's an anti-cancer drug. It's called rapamycin. It's been shown in animal tests to extend life by 10%. 10%. I don't know about you, Pete, 10%. I don't know, I'd want the right 10% to be extended. Can you imagine if you got an extension of all the worst bits?
I think, that's the way the world's going. I'm happy where I am.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad I'm the age I am, quite frankly. Consumer Affairs has set its sights on these influencers, you might have read. It's a multi-million-dollar business. Lots of complaints, lots of compliments about people who sort of set themselves up to influence others. You can set yourself up to be anything. But it's up to us to either buy or not to buy whatever it is they're selling. Flogging. What makes any of these people, I wonder, and they're mostly actors or models or socialites or sports people, what makes them worth listening to? With regard to products, advice and services, does anybody really think that these people would be not taking money to spruik them? Don't know why you need a ACCC Consumer Affairs type investigation. I would have thought that it would be Blind Freddy would know that these people were being paid to promote various products and services. And as always, let the buyer beware. Product placement has been around a lot longer than social media. Product placement has been given a whole new meaning because of social media. But this is where various brands and various products were placed in obvious situations in movies and television productions to get some sort of promotional advantage. I remember seeing a can of Coca-Cola in a Superman movie, and you could just bet your socks that Superman would be paying for that. And BMWs were being driven by James Bond. Can you imagine? Do you imagine for a second that BMW did not pay to have their car in the movie? I don't think we're that naive. I think we're on top of this. I believe, the best advertising in the world, if you want my opinion, is word of mouth. I liked that name so much I went out and formed a company called Word of Mouth, the best advertising in the world. And it is, because it's just one person telling another person, telling another person, telling another person about an honest experience with a product or a service. It's really very, very effective and very cheap. In fact, I believe that in my days in radio, particularly when I owned the company, that's really what we did. We had one person listening to a radio station. How do I explain this? You've got somebody sitting behind the microphone and one person out there, maybe multiplied by 1 million, but only one person, because on radio you're only talking to one person at a time. It's a very personal medium. And you are imparting, as long as you don't do it and it's too glib or it's too perfect or it's too unnatural, or it's a product you don't believe in or you don't like. But a person on radio selling a product person to person like that is enormously effective and cost effective as well. I meant to mention to you last week, so can I fit it in now, Pete? There was a doctor he got into trouble. This was in England. I thought we were woke in this country. But he got into trouble for holding up a newborn baby and announcing to mum and dad, mother and father, it's a boy. The mother reprimanded the doctor, saying that the sex of a child should not be announced until the baby is old enough to choose for itself. Do you believe that, Pete?
Hey, you're serious.
This is true. This is true. This woman is going to be in charge of the young life that she has just given birth to. Amazing. And you have now the business of the award season in the United States. You know, you've got the Golden Globes and the Oscars and all of these other things. There are people there who don't want to have separate awards for actors and actresses. I don't know about this one. What they're saying is that all should be the same, men and women. The best actor. I don't know. I guess it's up to all of us to form an opinion for himself or herself. What's wrong with understanding, accepting, promoting, appreciating the differences between men and women? Male and female. I salute, I honour, I respect, I enjoy. I continue to be amazed and attracted by the opposite sex. Why do people want to blur the lines? What's the point? And now from Scotland, this amazing story. A man who is now partially transitioned to being a woman is accused of raping a woman. Now this fellow started transitioning after he had been charged with rape. And even though he is still a man, he is in a woman's prison, and there is nothing anybody can do about it. And we are talking here about the law. Women in a women's prison now have to have within their number a man, physically, sexually, a man who is up for rape. I can't see where we're going with any of this. How is all of this going to improve the world, make it a better place to live, deter people from crime? It's a craziness. A craziness that I don't understand, which goes back to what Pete and I were just saying. I'm really glad I'm the age I am. Growing up today, you'd be really terribly confused. I saw a cartoon the other day, and it was a circus owner, and he had there in front of him, he had the bearded lady, the tattooed man, and somebody else, the fat man or something, I don't know. And he said, I'm sorry, I've got to let you go. You're not freaks anymore. You're just like everybody else. Who the hell's going to come to the circus and look at themselves? Now, I don't mean that to be cruel if you're a bearded lady or a tattooed man. But you see what I mean. The world is just nuts. Let's take the weekend to get our thoughts back together again. See you on Monday. Drive safely if you're driving. Believe in yourself. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux, and from Peter Clayton as well. Bye for now.